We're ready.
Okay, so I just want to start thanking you to be here, both the listeners and the three of you. I really appreciate you being here, having this conversation. It means a lot to me, and I have met some of you, and some of you is the first time. So I'm really happy to be here and to know more about your practices and see how we can deal with this conversation and see how it goes. So I prepared just a small snippet, so bear with me, to present this talk and this initiative. So the aspects that that propelled me to start these initiatives. So the initiatives is three. So there is a series of interviews. There is this virtual talk, and then there is a virtual exhibition in collaboration with Underground Art and Design that is going to preview soon, and I'm very excited for that too. So I will share some resources at the end, so we can see some papers I found about care and arts and how arts can propel change and all of that. I think it's very well written, so I will share that at the end. So the aspects of care that propel me to create these initiatives focus on the importance of ethics, emotions, practices, and actions intertwined with art practices. So care is a tangible manifestation of interdependence and relationality, showcasing how everyday actions have political potentials. So it emphasizes the ethical connections between personal and communal or collective aspects, fostering relational responsibility. So paying attention to caring helps focus intentions and actions, highlighting the significance of caring practices in promoting ethical creativity and fostering relationships within communities. So for me, it's very important to embody this idea, and for a lot of practices who deal with environmental care and social care and political care, because it creates more sustainable initiatives as it involves tapping into the full intelligence of the body, the senses and experiences to engage with the complex issues of today. So individuals and communities can extend the scope of what is considered worthy of care, being it human or non-human entities, and this expanded sense can shape collective imaginations, open up new possibilities, and foster the emotional energy needed for individuals to exert agency in the world. So art, as I think I try to show with this project, art and creative practices offer a unique platform for expressing care and recognition around these emotions and experiences, creating a space for transformation to emerge, laying the foundation for long-term impact and meaningful change. So I think there is a strand of artists who are really focused on care, and care for not only for the environment and people around, but for themselves. And that was something that really interested me when I started to found these practices and these artists in interviews, and Francesca was one of them, because it really shows that for be able to change something, we need to also to care for ourselves and show empathy to other beings, and other beings being non-human and human alike. And so for me, it's really refreshing to find artists like this, and found there is an academic strand also trying to deal with this trend of care, and show this is the article I will show you at the end, and it's going to be on the website as resources, because there is these specific artists created a lot of ways where we can create a more dynamic connection with arts and care and policymakers, and how arts can be explained better, and so get more funding and all of that. So I think it's very interesting to look at it. So as you can see here, we have three artists, and the three artists here is Francesca Busca, Tessa Teixeira, and Luca, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name, Luca Verels. I'm sorry, I'm always butchering last names like this. But you all, sorry, you all have or engage with care in different ways. So Tessa focuses on existential and ecological care. Francesca emphasizes environmental stability through upcycle, and Luca Verl Isles explore care through human connection and futurology. So I prepared here just small texts on each of you. I hope I make justice to our practice. It's a small. Oh, sorry, I just started missing here. Sorry. Praxis delves into existential philosophy, consciousness, and sentience while reflecting on challenges such as climate change, ecology, and the loss of biodiversity. Her artwork explores the intricate relationship between humans and the natural world, aiming to provoke thought and discussion on these pressing environmental issues. Some of her recent works focus on climate change-related themes like climate refugees, droughts, flooding, and the impact of global warming on communities. So what Tessa brought, I think she's brought up today, is some questions and inquiries that I really want to hear more about. Is what it's like to be a plant? How can we imagine the experience of radically different life forms when its way of existence is so far removed from ours, and the term plant blindness? So I advise you to go. I left a link to a website. Go have a look if you want to before a talk or during a talk, and have questions prepared if you want to ask at the end. So I'll now move to Francesca. So Francesca Busca, also known as eco-artivist or rubbish artist, is a pioneer in sustainable art. She creates her artworks entirely out of waste materials, showcasing her commitment to environmental consciousness and resourcefulness. Francesca's practice involves working with ethical and material limitations, utilizing materials that often take years to gather. She embraces the challenges of constantly shifting tools, adhesives, and arrangements to create meaningful tesserae out of rubbish. By transforming waste into art, Francesca serves as a protest against the disposable lifestyle prevalent in society, emphasizing the urgency to reconnect with the ecosystem and transition to a circular economy. Now, for Luca Verl Als. She's a graphics, sound artist, body researcher, dancer, and writer. We connected through a remarkable book she wrote, chronicle her 5-week adventure tracing a river from its source to its mount. And so her artistic journey is exploration of human form, illuminating its profound connections to itself, others, and the surrounding environment. The work she's presenting now currently works with groups of people on futurology and imagining fictive futures. She still creates spaces for mourning and memories of nature, and writes and records meditations and visualizations exercise that facilitate environmental mourning, but her aim has shifted a bit towards a more futuristic thinking. So that's all I have for your bios. So we should try to move now to the presentation. I think we'll start in order. So if Tessa, you want to go first, you present your work. So
thank you. Hi. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for saying Teixeira, because living in South Africa, there's no way that I would be called Teixeira. I would be called Teixeira, or I mean, it just doesn't come out the way you said it. So thank you very much. So maybe let me just start from the beginning there. I need to just highlight that I'm at that stage in my life where, really, I honestly believe that I'm going to remember what it was that I was going to say, and then somehow I feel like I've got headlights on me, and then I don't know what I'm saying. So what I would like to say is, in terms of everything that I'm going to try and speak about, if you really want to get an understanding of where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to do with it, is you should go onto my website, which is the seeinggreenartpractice.com. It's a new project that I'm starting because I've kind of got to a stage where I'm slowly, gradually, I was saying to Francesca earlier, part of the problem of being an artist in today's economy is you've got the one foot in the commercial side of life, and then you've got the other side in terms of where you're actually just really trying to make art that means something to you. And it's I found it quite difficult to actually transition in this because, we also, what I found interesting through COVID was we seem to have more care and understanding for each other than what we suddenly, 3 or 4 years later are back at this competitive drive. Which makes all of us feel that we have to be something 100% instead of just,
Yeah.
gradually transitioning towards something. So that's basically, so I did want to highlight that. Please take some time at some point just to read what it is, because in a way it's starting to put together what this is all about. Jonah, you can just sort of flip through maybe to the first, uh, the third slide. I'm not sure what you can see from your side, but in terms of what's on that page, really, what I'm speaking about there is the term plant blindness. And I've been asking myself, how on earth did I even get to this? I think essentially, I've always been interested in existential philosophies. I've been interested in people who talk about why on earth we're here, what are we all about? It's typical as artists, we start asking us about ourselves first, this navel gazing thing that we do as humans. And through my practice, I've basically gone from that type of interest into things that are a bit more uh, collective, in the sense of collective consciousness as opposed to just consciousness as such. So dealing with the questions of what makes you you, what makes me me, what is it actually that consciousness is? And it is the hard problem of philosophy because none of us can really completely say what it is. And I've been thinking, well, how did I land up at plants? And I think, in 2018, South Africa had that terrible drought, where in Cape Town, suddenly we had no water in our taps. And I do remember so clearly, and I mean, I live in Joburg, and I remember so clearly thinking, oh my gosh, this is actually what it means when you don't have something that's a limited resource available to you. And it's amazing how, just in terms of our collective consciousness, what we all went through in having to change our behaviors, our lifestyle behaviors that we just assume is just our right in terms of being, a human being, that, it's our right to have water, but we don't take the responsibility of what that actually means in terms of a bigger planet and the access of having drinkable water for everybody. And that sort of started my work, which was called Nothing Stands Still. And that's when I started dealing with things about refugees and stuff like that. And if you actually follow the progress of what I've been doing, it's kind of all come back to this whole challenge of climate change and how it really is affecting us in terms of the more frequent flooding you're seeing. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but even last week we actually had serious floods again, and tornadoes, which we never get in South Africa, on the KwaZulu-Natal coastline. And that has kind of then started making me think about, also through COVID, where being at home and having to be, just stuck at home, I started paying more attention to plants around me, and then the reading started taking me to, but climate change is affecting plants as well. It's not just a case of what you can see in terms of, a drought or a flood. And I then came across writers and scientists, because a lot of my work, or when I'm thinking about things, I tend to read sort of secondary research. I don't do it in a primary way. And I've come across these scientists that are starting to question what it is to be a plant, in the sense that we as humans want to anthropocize everything. Everything's going to be seen from the way we think or how we feel, our consciousness. But we don't try and think of something that's different from us, in terms of, so what would the consciousness or intelligence of a plant be? Or what is the role of a plant? And if climate change does affect plants, how's it really going to affect us? So that's kind of where I'm coming from with all these questions and my project. So in terms of the work that I've put out recently, I have this Nature's Philharmonic Symphony. And it's because I'm starting off on the basis of saying, well, I'm opening my mind to this whole thing. And that's also why, if you're on my website, you'll see I've called it edition 1. So I see that it'll build as I start going deeper into it. But at this stage, I'm sort of aware of the symbiotic, mutualistic relationships that actually exist in nature. The fact that nature needs a cooperative understanding, and we as humans, we don't seem to understand that. So we kind of just take and we overuse, and we don't really think about plants even in that context or in that way. So Nature's Philharmonic Symphony was really an idea of I made it from proteas. I tried as much as possible with the materials that I was using to sort of move towards a more ecological, sustainable, use. I couldn't avoid some things, like for instance, if you see like the fact that it does have like a bit of steel, that's hanging, holding it up. But I tried with everything within that to move towards something that's more natural. And the whole idea behind this one is, proteas is one of the South Africa's national plants, and they attract huge amounts of birds. And there's also literature that's coming out that in certain areas they are actually under threat. There are a lot of protea species that are actually under threat and largely driven by climate change. Joanne, if you go to the next one. The next piece of work that I'd like to talk about, which is the one after this one, yes, the orchid herbarium. I really enjoyed doing this one purely on the basis that I was actually mentioning before the talk started that South Africa is going through we are really having a problem with the supply of electricity, which in some ways is a good thing, but in some ways, obviously, because we're a hugely unequal society, it affects poorer people a lot more than what it affect me. And the reason why I made this one was eventually, after a 3-4 year period, we actually gave in and we bought solar panels for our roof because we just couldn't do our work and stuff without having the solar panels. And the silver lining of that is that the people who can afford it in South Africa are actually doing that. So naturally, again, linked to what I spoke about with the water, our behavior is starting to move naturally towards recyclable, electricity provision. And this particular work, the actual styrofoam that's been used in it was the boxes that the solar panels came in. And I immediately thought, I've actually got to do something with that, because I'm sure I don't know if you're aware of it, but styrofoam is really one of the biggest problems that we have in terms of, I'm sure, Francesca, you're aware of it. The minute, I mean, styrofoam just does not break down. It does not break down. And it lands up in the waterways. It lands up in all these things. And I even feel, and this is where I was talking about in the beginning, where you've got the 1 foot in the commercial side and the 1 foot in trying to move your practice to a sustainable practice. Is that we can try and justify as artists, oh, we're using the styrofoam because we're trying to send a message. But eventually, I think we need to address that, because ultimately we have to stop using it. It has to be, we have to stop producing it, quite frankly. There needs to be something that comes up where we're not producing it. In terms of the fact that I based it on the orchids, is because orchids, being quite a special plant in the sense that they would very easily be affected by climate change. They are the first ones, they're the first indicators that there's a problem in an area. Like, for instance, let's say they're in forests and the forests are being cleared and stuff like that. And if your orchids start disappearing, that there's actually a serious problem within that area. So I chose the orchids, and also the Elophia and the Plantitera are actually ones that are extinct in South Africa, and the Disa used to be in the Cape Mountains, but you're actually not seeing them as much there anymore. So that's already starting to show. There are obviously other reasons, people coming and wanting to sell orchids, so then they take them, or photographers taking them to take photographs and then they kill them, that type of thing. But essentially, that's kind of like what I was going on with this one. Joanna, I'm not sure. Did you want me to sort of pause and then a question asked, or did you want me to just quickly go through and then
No, just
discuss anything?
Speak about your work.
I don't really want to talk much about this one. Let's just move on to the next one, because I think I've spoken about the orchids. It's fine. I'd like to talk about this one, which for me is actually the one which is really starting to show where I actually want to take my practice. And it's not commercially, you can see, I mean, nobody's going to come and buy this piece of artwork, if you know what I mean. But it's really sort of starting to move towards where I need to challenge myself to be able to lead my practice into this way of thinking. But because my mind and my thoughts are around symbiosis, mutualistic, cooperative relationships linked to plants as a means of understanding what is a plant, I started reading Darwin. I started looking at different scientists that are dealing with these things. Like, I don't know if you've heard of her, Monica. Sorry, I have to look at her name because I would have already forgotten her
Monica
name.
Gagliano.
Monica,
I
Monica
adore her.
Gagliano.
I adore
And
her. She's the
she
queen
wrote
of
a paper.
evolutionary ecology. Yes.
Yes. She wrote a paper, Seeing Green, and that's obviously where I'm sort of getting this whole idea as well. And she's getting a lot of flack because you can imagine the sort of scientists who don't want to think that maybe plants could have a form of intelligence or consciousness, or some sentience, that we need to recognize, not through the way we would see it, but the fact that that they actually have it within the context that they have it. She's been doing a lot of sort of experiments and things where I actually think she's the first one to actually bring this up, where we are plant blind, in the sense that, and I think this is what plant blindness is about. I can guarantee you, you can speak to so many people and ask them specific questions about plants. Most people do not actually know a lot about plants. They don't even know if that is a flower or a bulb do you know what I mean? We see plants as a homogeneous thing almost, and the only thing we focus on is when there's a very pretty flower. That's also, by the way, why I chose the proteus on the first one. Or because they're not like animals. They don't really come and let us touch them and pet them and stuff like that. And this particular work, so in those two sort of containers, I've put things like gazanias or gazinias. I'm not sure how you say that, Joe, because I was trying to show that scented ones react to metal stresses by increasing their metabolism, for instance. Inside them, I've also got things like lavenders, because lavender is regenerative and they attract bees. And I've put things like the cancer bush, because in terms of the cancer bush, it's medicinal. So I'm trying to show that there's different things that we as humans possibly would sort of know about a plant, but there's some things that we wouldn't know about a plant. I'm just trying to think which other one I actually put in there that maybe would speak to that. The primrose, where it's linked to sound. So, for instance, it reacts to the sound by sweetening its nectar, that type of thing. And I've got a whole bunch of, readings and stuff that if you go onto my website, I've captured some of that. And that's where I see my practice moving to, where I need to delve more into that and actually start building, on that. Okay, then the next one. Okay, this one, the gazania, I mentioned as well. And then obviously you can see I use sub-styrofoam there as well. And then also, I think what's important with this one as well is, with all of this that I'm doing, I'm really interested in herbariums. And I'm looking back at how, why it's important to have them, and why, we actually need to fund these type of projects that, look into herbariums, because they can actually figure out the DNA, and they can figure out things from, why certain things stop growing in certain areas linked to climate change or stuff like that. And in terms of this work, this is sort of where I'm going, with that. But it's an introduction of that. Okay, then the next one. I'm giving you an overview, and hopefully in the end it sort of like makes a bit of a cohesive picture. This one, I actually worked on cork. And the main reason for that is because it's a tree that you can actually take the bark off, and it regenerates for, I can't remember exactly, I wrote it down somewhere, but there's a number of times that you can actually take the bark off a tree, which in a way makes it a good tree or material to use, because that it doesn't have one lifetime kind of thing in terms of that material. And then most of the sort of the subject matter in this one, it's talking about rewilding, because it's like, that's one of the issues around climate change and our cities and the way that we live, is that we actually need to get to a stage where we actually let things grow in natural states. And so within this work, you'll see there's a bird and there's bees, and it talks about the symbiosis and mutualism and all of that. Most of these materials, I've tried to use things where it is a bit more sustainable. Okay, then the next one. Sorry, I'm not controlling this button. This one I quite enjoy doing, because it's really, again, trying to put it out there where the art piece itself is using plants as part of the creative process. So the plants are part of the creation of the fact that we all live on this one planet kind of thing, and we all need to be working together. And I used succulents because tying in again to the fact of global, climate change and droughts, and the fact that they they preserve the water, and that they also release obviously carbon dioxide. Okay, and then the next one. This one, it's really referring to the sort of the science about what was her. I forget her name now, but I think it's Simard. Sorry, I always have to just make sure that I'm not referring to the wrong person. But she's been doing research into trees, and she's basically, and again, she's getting a lot of flack for it because people are saying, really, are you honest? Do you really think that really does happen? But she believes that, especially in forests, you get mother trees, and these mother trees share nutrients and share things with all, the other trees in a forest. So again, it's speaking towards the symbiotic mutualistic relationships that exist in forests, and especially old forests. And that's also why this whole idea that we can get out of climate change just by planting new forests, it's not completely work, because you're losing a lot of what really works within old forests. And the main thing is we should actually try to make sure that we're not cutting down those trees. In terms of just this work itself, it's an acrylic painting. This is something that I do have a bit of a problem with for myself, in the sense that, we all know acrylics are made from polymers. So I want to sort of, you'll see with my work that's coming out now, I'm starting to use more, and I'm experimenting more with materials which doesn't have the polymers, because obviously it ties back to the fossil fuel extraction. Okay, the next one I'm also not really going to talk about because it sort of ties in, Joanna. I'm just giving you a heads up, yeah. Go to the next one. Okay, then with this one, the early warning messenger, I've also included work which deals with birds, because again, birds pollinate flowers or plants. So again, it's tying into the symbiotic relationship. I'm not, and I think you can see from what I'm saying that there's a couple of threads that I'm going to be able to sort of go into and start developing as I start doing the Seeing Green. Okay, then the next one. Joanna, the next one. Okay, if you could just go past that one as well. I don't want to actually talk about that at the moment, because it sort of ties into the same thing. See, if I had the remote, I would just be going past it. Okay, then Joanna, just go to the next one, please. The
piano tree.
Okay. So then the latest, some of the latest works that I've been doing as well is, you'll pick up from my work, I do like installation. And one of the reasons why I like installations is because firstly, it just, it has a fun element to it. And in terms of human beings and us, it's almost as if, it's like, you have to go out into nature and play, and actually go and spend time in nature, not just where you're walking past and seeing the tree, but not really looking at the tree and trying to understand, what it is that you're looking at. So basically, this whole idea, and the next one as well, came from the fact that I wanted to really bring attention to tree canopies and the sort of life that's within forests, and the relationships that would be present within them. Here you can see I'm still linked to a commercial thread of work. So this installation then becomes 4 pieces of work. Most of them I've tried to use sustainable materials again, where I use a handmade paper. I work with a really lovely artist in South Africa. He's started this company, Solient, I forget the exact name, but Solient Papers, and what I love, and if you actually go close to them, is when he was making the paper, a lot of like insects and that landed in the paper. So you'll find once you actually come up close to the work, you will be able to identify a number of insects within the actual work. I think in totality, and I don't know if that's come through, because I've always wondered, how do I say what it is that I do? Mostly in terms of just being an artist, I think that I'm drawn to painting. That's where the whole thing started. But ultimately, I see myself as a conceptual collaborator. I'd like to work with people and create certain things. So you're not going to find me doing every single aspect of everything, because then it doesn't allow me to actually get what's in my head, because I'm not going to overnight be able to just suddenly be able to do everything. So that's sort of in a nutshell, I hope, what I'm all about.
Thank you, Tessa. I think so for me, and I think also the audience and all the artists, you can see a thread in your work all about co-creation and co-collaboration with materials. And this is a small note, and then other artists can start presenting. But I think there is a strand which is quite important, that the artists are starting co-collaborating with bacteria, with other materials and other ways of life. And I think it brings another layer to this movement through a more sustainable and just world. Yeah. So, Francesca, what I advise for the listeners and you all is that if you want to make any questions, just write them down as I did, and then after the presentations we ask, so we have a bit of a flow here. So I will ask Francesca. First, I will thank Tessa for the presentation, and then Francesca, if you want to start presenting your work, that would be great.
Yes, please. But before presenting my work, I just wanted to connect to Tessa and say I'm 100% with you. I have been reading and studying evolutionary ecology and vegetable neurobiology for the past 6 years. I'm not reading anything else. So quite frankly, I've got lots of books to recommend to you. Monica Gagliano is amazing. She collaborated with Stefano Mancuso in lots of projects at the International Laboratory of Vegetable Neurobiology in Florence, which is probably the biggest hub. Of course, there's lots of people, even in England, that actually talk about it. I'm reading a book on mushrooms, fungi at the moment, which is incredible. Anyway, yes, it all starts from Darwin and his The Power of Movement in Plants, of which I actually found, after years of research, the original with the ending that he didn't write because he died before, at the Museum of Natural History here in London, but it comes from the Smithsonian, the copy they have. And I found two actually, and they're written differently because they were handwritten back then. Because he did, I mean, amazing. It all starts from there. But basically, 15 sentences have already been proven in plants. 15. We've got 5. They're now working on to another 5. So yes, and what you were talking about, mother trees that Monica Gagliano had as a shamanic experience. Actually, Stefano Mancuso and everyone else, Peter Wall, have been lots of other people. I have proven them to be true, and they're called hub trees. And they are the ones who actually are kept alive even after they're dead, because they are so spread around that they communicate with everyone within the ecosystem, which can spread for kilometers and kilometers and kilometers. So, and again, it's all based on collaboration. It's not that if you die, I live because I reached the sun first. It's the community who decides which tree will live, because it's not a matter of individuals, but it's a matter of community. And the tree doesn't care, because its purpose apparently is that of spreading the genes and keep carrying on the biodiversity for the common good. And that is why I'm so glad I linked to you. I mean, I'm so excited about what you do, because it's something that really pushes my button. And it's because, again, that's what I think we should do. We need to stop living in an anthropocentric society and actually focus on the common good of the whole system, because we're so out of it at the moment. That is just scary, and this is what's bringing us to our extinction. Not only ours, actually, we will be the first kind ever, in at least the life we know, that will bring to extinction everyone else with us. You know, the dodos at least extinguished, self-extinguished, but, you know, rest of us kept living. But no, we're doing much worse than that. So, yeah, this is why I call myself an eco-artivist, because art is only the last step of what I do. You know, it's they used to call it, you know, in the Austrian Revolution, the Gesamtkunstwerk. You know, it's like a total body of art. Art is everywhere, it's in everything, and everything is linked. And in fact, you know, I'm vegan. I only wear secondhand clothes. I only use renewable energy. I have my wildlife garden. I have my I'm trying to grow my vegetable garden. I'm not very good at it yet, but I'm trying. And again, I'm trying to put as much biodiversity in it as I can, right? Because it's all organic, and I'm learning. My neighbors are very helpful in that respect, thankfully. But yeah, so I haven't flown for 4 years. I mean, there's so many things I can say. I got rid of plastic in toiletries after years and years, but there's so much to do, and it's a learning curve, and every day, you're learning how you could do things more sustainably. So, and sustainability is not just, as you say, it's not a matter of for our life. It's just something that should be in everyone's life. Should just be the way of life itself. If it's not sustainable, of course, it's going to bring itself to its death and everyone else. But I'm talking life with a capital L, of course. So that's why I started doing what I do with waste, because I initially tried to find a way to reduce my plundering of resources, really, since apparently we use more than twice the sustainable resources that were allowed to globally. I mean, Luxembourg, I think it's 8.5 times, and so is another. Yeah, I mean, some extraordinary figures that really make my hair raise. But in Europe, we're starting to do a bit better, but still, it's usually twice the amount. So that's a lot. That means that we deplete stuff that will not be able to replenish itself in time. For the year, coming year, and that's what we measure it in. But it's longer than that. Anyway, so I started just saying, look, why can't I use waste, which is already a huge problem that we have. And that's when I came up basically with replacing all my little testers with waste, rubbish. And I also thought of how can I make this problem more evident and try to make people change the way of living, little by little. As I started, it's hard. I mean, I don't know how to do it properly. I'm learning. It's a learning curve. So, but you've got to start from somewhere. And for example, I understand how ignorant I was of the state of things myself, up to a few years ago, and how it really helped that someone opened my eyes into certain things, and then one thing leads to the other. So anyway, I thought, the government would be the best, but it's slow. Individuals are the best, actually, for sure, but 10 lifetimes are not enough to reach everyone you'd like to. Though, of course, that is the one way where everyone can learn, I learn a lot as well by tailoring the conversations to whoever you have in front of you. But then I just thought, why not corporations, companies, firms? I mean, I used to be a solicitor in the city of London, so I still had some connections, and I feel very comfortable in the corporate environment. So I just thought that is where we have to go, because they are quick, they're efficient, they've got the resources. They, most of them have a global presence, so they can reach thousands, if not millions of people at once. And so that's what when I thought I'd come up with Art for Trash, which is this initiative for which I go into city offices, schools, institutions, whoever wants me. A golf tournament coming up actually in July. And I just make artwork for their office or their premises with their own waste. So the point is that I hope this initiative has a legacy, this project, because I go in, we look around, we see what kind of rubbish they make, and then it's the staff or the client that has to put those things aside. So through, months, it depends on, of course, on how big and how many pieces they need for the space. But so they are actually forced to stop and look at what they didn't even, look at once, imagine twice before, and actually put it on the side and treat it as a treasure. And I hope that is actually changing their perspective on waste, because every little thing they put aside not only has a value to come, but, they probably realize that it has a value already for the processes it has undergone to become what it is. Imagine all the resources and the energy that they had to use to make that. Not to talk, about oil again, that should stay in the ground. That could be our first way to survive. But and it's going very well because, of course, after they collect, I go and get it through eco-friendly means if I can. So either through public transport or with my electric car. And then I bring the artwork back to show in the premises. And quite frankly, the best thing is that it's actually such a good icebreaker with the clients. They keep telling me or coming back for more, and some of them move the pieces from the corridor, say, to the main boardroom. Well, everyone who connects, through Zoom or whatever it is, sees it first. So that's another way of, I'm hoping, carrying on, this legacy that it sparks new conversations on the matter. So hopefully, because I always get in with the greenwashing thing, do you see? But once I'm in, I hopefully work my magic through this project, and I find people who care. They just don't know how to start the conversation, how to get people involved, how to make them change their perspective. It's all about starting little things. And also I'm thinking, when it is the firm, this posh offices, imagine, when it is someone from there, their boss who tells them, or, they make a directive of doing something that's eco-friendly, that could sound a bit wacky at first. It's actually the best way to legitimize it and make it part of their daily routine. Do you see? So it's the best way to start. And I do actually, that's the best thing out of all of it, I think, is that I do have very strong connections then. I form very strong bonds with everyone I deal with, because they do come back for more information even. Or, they tell me about things that they've seen that actually they wouldn't have noticed as much maybe before we did this project together. And then it's a network actually that starts creating itself. And that's the beauty of it, because I think nowadays there's so many of us, if you want to change the system, which is obviously not working, because we are actually self-extinguishing, the best way of doing it is to do it from within. So within, create a network that works in every single field, in every single area of it, and then connect, talk to each other, cooperate, collaborate. Again, as Tessa was saying, it's exactly how nature works. They collaborate, they cooperate, and it's not about us as individuals anymore. It's us about life, representing life, as pieces of life, an aspect of life. And I actually think that everyone in this world has the same right. Of course, that's why I'm vegan. Also, for environmental reasons as well. But I actually think that this is a world of trees, and we are probably their pets. And we just take them for granted because they're everywhere. And they are the ones who actually make the world go on, We wouldn't be living without them, but they can actually live without us. Unless, we bring everything to flames. So yeah, that's interesting. So again, I don't have a presentation per se, and I'm sorry about that. Not as organized as this. But what I wanted to say, when you were saying, things. Okay, so I really enjoy what I do, of course. And for example, as you were saying, some things take me years to gather. Well, this, I know exactly how long it took me. It took me 1,311 days to gather, to make the 3. But because these are the daily medicines that my mom takes for the thyroid. And so I know exactly how many pieces I had and how long it took me, because I couldn't have more than one per day. and it's probably my favorite material right now. Having said that, I just came back from a residency in Venice at the Institute of Marine Sciences, because again, 1/4 of my time I try to do pro bono work with institutions, with schools, with whoever asks. Although actually, and then 10% of all my art for trash initiatives, these ones whereby I use the client's waste for their own artwork, goes to an environmental charity. And at the moment, it's the ex-Sea Shepherd UK, now called Neptune's Pirates, or the Captain Paul Watson Foundation UK, with which actually we're having some really nice, interesting plans to do things I had together. So the materials. But anyway, so with the Institute, we did an art for trash project. We've been working on it for about a year. So imagine there are these luscious premises. They have the Arsenale, which is where they used to build the boats. And they have 3 of these vast premises, let's say. Each one of them was used to build we call it galea. Those boats where it was the prisoners who would row. So they were very big. They were huge, actually. And inside they just reproduced this really nice modern buildings that remind you just of those ships being built. Anyway, so I used only the waste that they produce from their labs, their offices, their platform Acqua Alta, and their ship Gaia Blue. And I love this dichotomy, between, well, first of all, creating life with its nemesis, plastic, the antithesis of it, which I do most of the time, but also this tension between this institute whose principal, whose main goal was to minimize our impact, on the sea, on our oceans, so that we could preserve it better, and the fact that it could not do that without making an impact itself. That is actually not, doesn't come from them. It's, as Tessa was saying, something that comes from way, above. We need to stop producing those things and start to find good replacements. But also, when we do, we need to find a way to close the circle. And that is something that, because again, it was so interesting, this residency, I did manage to speak to as many scientists as I could and get feedback. Because I was acting as how do you say it, a means of communications between the scientific world and the public. And also for what I did, and I'll get to it later, I needed as much input and information as I could, because of course I was reproducing the marine wildlife in the middle of the people who actually know it best. So it was there's some pressure there, but they were all so nice and welcoming. But anyway, one thing that came out immediately was exactly this thing, that there are so many new inventions nowadays that are being done, that are being made, but then no one closes the circle. So you've got these beautiful bioplastics, that then no one knows actually how to degrade and bring back, or bring back, to the initial point in the circle. And in fact, my residency was within this project Maelstrom, which it's an EU project that has been going on for almost 5 years, whereby there were some very interesting partners involved who had the resources, the money to back it up and actually experiment it in practice, whereby they found a way to recover many different kinds of plastics from the sea. And that's already incredible because, as you know, plastic is so hard to recycle, because every single type of plastic, and there's hundreds, have to be recycled separately. Recycling is not working, unfortunately. But these guys found a way to get some of them together, turn them into this other material, which is mainly looks like it could be used to do floors or kitchen tops, countertops. It looks a bit like Corian, for example. It's actually really nice. It works very well. And so they recycle it, and then, they found a way to close the circle as well. Not only, this was a mechanical way of recycling, but also they have a chemical recycling now that they are testing at the moment, which actually creates virgin polymers out of plastic, which means they're really getting back to having plastic as it was. So that means that whatever oil we have left in the ground can actually stay in the ground now. This is an incredible discovery. I was so excited, actually. I felt like a little, child on stories. And mind you, I found incredible similarities between scientists and artists, because they have this huge imagination, of course, because otherwise they couldn't even make a thesis, and try to prove anything. They have to have some idea that they need to prove or disprove. And also this curiosity, about things. And that's probably why they were so cooperative as well. They would give me ideas, they would give me information, they would give me inspiration, they would give me cheers. It was such a lovely, lovely experience. And I am so sorry that the scientific world seems so far apart from us. Because I think there is not enough communication between that and us, and it should be on a daily basis. If we really want to make a difference, that basal scientific really, and studies and knowledge of our planet, we need to know what those are. And of course they have, they don't have the time to communicate it to us as well. Already their way of putting it into paper and divulging it is through scientific language, of course, jargon. That's how they communicate between them, so they can be super specific, about what they find. But we do need that extra layer of translation, I think. it gets lost in translation. It's a pity. That's why I felt so privileged to be there. And just to finish it off, sorry, and that is because, so basically what I did, I used I did a 3D installation, say, and I used the platform that was already a plinth from a previous exhibition. We just turned it around and put some wheels underneath and created a grotto where there was a hole underneath. It was just a fun experience from beginning to end. And then on top of that, I tried to recreate like a spotlight hitting the seabed. And instead of bringing to light all the colors that we would expect to see and all the life, it just brings to life bleached corals, lack, absence of colors and life. And then in the limelight, you can see that, you know, some colors and shapes are resuming. And then in the darkness, so where actually the sea is as we romantically imagine it, still as it was and as it should be. And it's like if the limelight represents our present moment, whereby we've got this little window of time in which we have to decide what our future will be. You know, will it be like in the center, or you know, as it should be, as we imagine it to be? And of course, the spotlight is science, shedding light to the fact or to a probable future, unfortunately, that we can avoid only by knowing, you know, exactly what's happening and finally taking care and respecting our environment, our planet. Yeah, so it was very intense, I have to say, but fun.
Thank you, Francesca. Thank you for sharing that. Just I have a question. Just how do you see me, in the horizontal or on the vertical side?
You know, it's funny because I see you horizontal, actually. Half of you horizontal.
Yes, Luca.
The same.
Yeah, well, we'll all be like that, and then it'll be fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't understand it because I see it on the the producer side. It's like, well, why am I vertical? What's happening? So I hope it's if I'd try me to change this in a way. Let me see.
It just makes it more fun. We'll all just talk like this.
One more thing I want to say, this is a curiosity, sorry, Tessa, always about you, because, well, Luca hasn't spoken yet, but I was fascinated by what you were saying. Tessa Mancuso also is the one, well, he invented the jellyfish barge, which is also an amazing way of raising a vegetable garden in the middle of the sea by turning the seawater soft and, you know, making it work on the plants. But also, he's the one who invented the little robots who will go onto Mars to get all the samples, and it resembles roots, the roots of a tree.
It's fantastic.
Because again, it is apparently the most efficient way of doing that, reaching as much, you know, resources and samples as possible. Communicate, you know, the mycorrhizal network basically is. So it looks like we're moving that way, you know, more and more that way.
I'm busy reading this book now by, I've got her name here because I forget. I don't know if you've heard of it, Zoe Schlanger.
No.
It's called The Light Eaters, The New Science of Plant Intelligence. And what I found quite interesting is how it's so controversial that you're almost so scared to even say that that's what you're busy doing, because it's almost like it's a joke. Do you know what I mean? Like, because there's so many people against that type of science. But then at the same time, and I was thinking about it now while you were talking, I mean, how do we move to anything new if we're not prepared to just say, well, what if?
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. That's what kept us going, you know. What if? What if? Can we just put it to a good use now, though, instead of, you know, what if we drill in the middle of the North Sea and get that oil out? Can we just say, what if we actually study plants? What if we study indigenous people and their relationship to nature, you know, and learn from them? I'm not saying we have to revert exactly to that, but I'm sure we could get so many good examples and ideas from them instead of, you know, anyway.
Yeah, I do agree with what you're saying, and I think it's a good way of transitioning to Luca's practice. So, Luca, if you want to present a bit of your work.
Yes, thank you. I am a sound and performance artist, and I research themes like ecology, but mostly human and other than human relationships, and the body, word, and sound. So I kind of I work with sound and writing as my artistic medium, but I make use of other media as well. I want to go through some of my works with you that relate to this talk about narratives of care. One of my biggest projects is a book I wrote, which is called The River Beneath the River. And I don't want to elaborate too much on it because Joanna and I already talked about it on our podcast. But I think it would be nice to speak a little bit about it because it's one of my most caring works towards nature, in which I have put the most questioning of what it is to environmentally care and connect and use natural environments as like an artistic companion. So, starting from a love of water and sound, the book compares the two in their immersive nature and their ability to connect with the other than human life forms. The text interweaves several temporalities, like the here and now, log in the water, while swimming, while walking, and then a reflective journal, and then one that is thinking with literature that I read on the journey or close to the journey. A literature in the world with like integrated network of sources like ecofeminism, hydrofeminism. I think with ideas of Donna Haraway and Astrida Neymanis are like very big thinkers in my thinking experience. And so the book is something that I wrote while following a river from source to mouth, like the place where it meets the sea. And I have recorded many sounds and reflective writings on that journey. And in these weeks, I try to connect to the more than human in new ways through sound, listening, affection, singing. And I think listening is a very good place to start when we are talking about environmental care and connection, because listening for me is both a form of cohabitation and an ecology. Through listening, you could say that you play in concert with things you hear, and the body becomes a fused body that is not separate from the environment, and in which senses are blended together, not split. So to listen is to hear and feel and move in space, but also allows us to not be too invasive in a place, but to be very careful about entering a place. But it also allows us to listen to our thoughts, ideas, memories, and emotions that are loosened and evoked by being in a certain space or sound. So entering a natural environment requires a deep awareness of how and where to move. And that is something I researched and was very busy with while making this. There are things that outsiders may not hear. There are beings that only appear when you're not there. And by listening and making quite thoughtful adjustments in our moving body, we practice adaptivity that is very needed in futures, I think. This practicing of adaptivity is something that I'm still really conscious about and really very much practicing. And so I believe that by listening, we can begin the process of kinship, of caring for nature, of caring for each other. We can create a transition by listening for what is needed or accepted, by asking and waiting. And I would like to now read small parts of the book that resonate with me when I think about environmental care. Um, yeah, I will just take the book here. Is this? These are writings that I've written on the journey. They're written in like the here and now of the walking and swimming. So we'll just start reading it out. Listen, listen. What is speaking to you? You swim with the river, following currents, at times so deep you cannot reach them. Swimming down there is like shaking those voices back to life. You dive through layers and layers, layers and layers and layers of water, floating beings surrounding you, spirits, faces, ghosts, a concert of 1,000 voices. You quietly become a sponge, echoes resonating inside you, becoming different with every repetition. Voices move within you, they tell stories into you, flow through, in, and out of you. The flow of the water reminding you of their presence, like whispers, polyphonic echoes. My mind is a feral place. While I fade into becoming something else, I become the sounds within this space. Feeling relations or some kind of reaching, I dig until I find comments under the moss and leaves and mud. Plants and animals are also a language. Grasses chatter, oysters are ears. They may have no speech, these landscapes, though they swell or flood with language. The ground under my feet disappears. I have to find myself a home in this language. Everything here has a resonant melody. I hear them as symbolic pull. Filling the next couple of hours with weight, attending like a method for morphing, the longing for extending relationship, until there is nothing that is not me. As I filter the water downstream, I stay still, try to be small and quiet. I am unaware of my borders, have become attuned. I need the intimacy to give me energy. Trust the current, the species already there. The wind on my skin, a rich smell falls on us. Earthy scents that signal the time of day. So that was just small parts from the book. So these are like small writings from my journey that speak about the abundance of the voices of nature, and my attempts to attune to it. But my current projects are a little different because this was a very individual project on which I worked for a few years, and currently I felt like I needed some more people in my work and in my life, and some kind of kin that just understands kind of the things I think about and has the same values and the same interests. So I've been starting these participative gatherings in which we come together in a specific place that has changed drastically in a certain time due to forms of global warming, new buildings, loud sounds, extinction, tree cutting, agriculture. So these places, any kind of change. It might be in a time we were not present in, like an historical event. Mostly it is in places that we have seen changing with our own eyes, and we are trying to find a place to mourn for. So these gatherings are, so I'm trying to create those mourning spaces for people to come together. I try this by coming together in a changed place or with a place in mind somewhere else. And we start by actively listening to the environment. And then I start to use elements from of other places. Like I use soundscapes and instruments of the actual place that I've recorded, with musical sounds interwoven. And later I use my voice to read out memories of the place, with music. Memories of the place, and a form of meditation that evokes remembrance and also makes space for emotion, acceptance, and singing together. So it sounds like a form of therapy, but it's not. It's I just felt like these spaces were needed. I think many people mourn for spaces that have changed, natural spaces. And I wanted to give these losses a form because it's very ignored by society that people can mourn a place, but also mourn plants, trees, animals. And I wanted to create those spaces, or some kind of place to just talk about it and think about it. I'm also collecting those stories of people relating with changed places. So if you have a story, any of you, you want to tell me about, I would love to listen. I have a soundscape online on my SoundCloud if you want to have a listen to one of the sounds that I use in the meditations. And I'm also in the process of rewriting those meditations to put them online in a more general way so you can use them in other places too. And then apart from that, I'm also writing short stories with other people, with friends, but also parents and their children is a very big group of people that I work with. And this project is in an early stage, but I think I should say, because in a way it is very connected to the Morning Project. And so we write stories that find themselves in the future. And we find inspiration in books and movies, like science fiction movies, these typical Netflix series, or even in our own dreams, or stories we've heard, or things that happen in science. And we just take inspiration from that. And then we also make use of imagination exercises that evoke fantasy in the future, character design, imaginative landscapes. And together we imagine other worlds as we give form to our questions for the future. And I think these exercises, this practice has been really fun to do. It's really nice to work with people together, not necessarily artists, but just people that are that need a place to think about their future and imagine things. But it's also been very emotive in a way. I think it is a good way to rethink our now, and reinvent relationships with animals, plants, computers, each other. And I think imagining these futures also infuse our now, our personal lives with, and also, like I said before in my book, these exercises allow us to practice adaptability, and that is something that I think is very important. So yeah, that's what I'm busy with, and I really enjoy doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you for that. I have a question for you just before it pops out of my head. I have it written, but just to continue the conversation. So how do you feel these experiences, these workshops of morning and these futuristic writings and speculations, how do you feel people and artists, I think it's an artist and other people who can collaborate and be part of these workshops and this project. I think the morning and the morning project and then the one for futuristic, I think it connects with each other because it's like a stage. You go from one side to another. So how do you feel people are reacting to that? What have you found being in these workshops and doing this project?
I've actually never put them after each other. I've only did them separate. I've had people that did both workshops, but in another time. And I think it would be nice to just have like a day starting with the morning workshop and then after creating these futures. In general, I've had people really moved by the morning things also because I work with people that are very connected to the spaces. I reach out to people that live there, and then some people react to it and come, and then I've also always reached out to people that are already emoted by the changing of a landscape. So having this exercise is for them also kind of a way to accept and move on, I guess. I think I've just had talks after the workshops, and it just helps to find people that also feel these feelings. And then the future workshops has been mostly with children and their parents, and I feel really we haven't really talked about it afterwards, but I really feel that the stories sometimes really are about this relationship towards their child living in this world that is changing so rapidly and drastically, and their fear of leaving their child in this world, and how will the world look when they are not there anymore, and their child has to make a living, make a life in a world that might not have any forests left or something like that. And I feel that parents really take this into their heart, thinking about the future of their child or of their own, and I think it's also really beautiful to see. And
thank you for that.
But then,
do you have, Tess and Francesca, do you have any questions?
The thing that's been sitting in my mind, firstly, Luca, you personify everything that you said. Like I haven't met you before, but I could feel what you were saying just by looking at you and the way you were talking. It was really lovely. Thank you so much. No, really, I'm not even being. It was really. I really enjoyed listening to it. Now, I was thinking now in terms of what we're talking about. The one thing I've become very aware of, and I don't know if it's a generalization. Maybe you guys have seen it differently, but is it only women? Is it only females that are thinking about these things? And is it only us who want to put out a different way of living and doing and pausing and thinking and really because your question was how does art feature in what was the question again? But you know what I mean, care and climate change and stuff like that. And the one thing that I'm aware of, just in terms of where I come from in South Africa, and is how that's considered soft issues. Do you know what I mean? It's the soft issues in life. So everybody knows about climate change. Everybody knows about these things. But in terms of their actual behavior change, in terms of them actually doing something differently, it's as if, well, that's the way a woman thinks. So that's what girls think about. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Yes. In years back, Friends of the Earth wrote a book which was called Why Women Will Save the Earth. And it was actually a collection of scientific findings or little treaties or little snippets of things by female scientists, female ecologists, female activists, etc., etc. And in fact, I agree with you. Why? I just wonder why. I I don't want to generalize. I am a feminist myself. I'm an eco-feminist.
I said it's generalization.
But
Generally, when
I
I look
believe in equal everything. But I agree with you. It's an odd reality, unfortunately. It seems to be.
and then it brings up the question, historically, females, women were left out of the arts. And it's taken, centuries or whatever for the female voice or even the female language or the way that we see, the way we create. And, and even today, I still feel that there's this thing where it's almost if we're not being courageous enough in terms of saying, no, but that is exactly how we see it. Well, we don't need to change the way we see it because you don't see it the way that we see it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, you listen.
It's interesting because it comes back to this whole question that you were asking, Joanna, with this, whether whether art can play a role in climate change or care for the environment. I think it comes back to these things. It's how we communicate, it's how we get our stuff out, what we actually do. Because, the other thing I'm also aware of, and I don't know if you guys have picked it up, but, especially with social media, you get your silos. And, I think about that often where I think, am I genuinely believing in what I'm doing here, or has the silo influenced me in terms of how I'm thinking about it? But also, how do I break out of that silo so that I can reach a different mind, or do you know what, or does what I do really add value to it in the end? And ultimately, I can see it in terms of the art industries, the fairs, the galleries, those people who play within that sphere. The minute they pick up on these themes and these silos, it then becomes part of. And then what concerns me is it's just a commodification of all of that again. And then when does that move on to the next thing that's now been picked up from? Do you know? So I think
Absolutely.
that's
Oh my God.
I'm thinking about in terms of what you asked, Joanna. In terms of whether it makes any difference.
Yeah, that's sorry, Francesca, if I'm stepping over you, but it's the first one is actually a question that people already asked me in the beginning of this project. Is this only for women? Because I could only find artists who were female or people who reached out who were female. Now, fortunately, we have other perspectives, non-binary and male, which is great, but it's a different kind of dealing with this issue of climate issues and social issues, political issues. And the second part, and it goes back to the article I read recently. So I'm fascinated with this artist. If I will try to find her name and give the link to you. And this is something that she really talks about, is the way we approach this type of art and its value. So how can we measure if this type of work is actually making a change, more than just, the artist putting the work out there, making people talk about the work and stuff like this. And so she gives you like a framework, and the framework for people who give grants and policymakers, that how can we assess the money that goes to this project, and why it goes to this project. Because what I found with this work is that sometimes, as Tessa was saying, the soft issues, and even though fortunately there is a lot of collectives that I've seen with artists gathering to talk about these works, and there is a movement, such a strong movement of artists and activists working on raising awareness and working with associations and organizations to collect trash and to bring people in to do workshops, as Luca was saying, to these workshops where people can find a place to mourn and talk about, to envision, speculate how the world can be, and so I think for this type of art, we need to reframe a bit of the value that we associate with the work. It's been done, how we grade it in terms of okay, this is ecological art. Okay, it's ecological art. So what is it bringing? I think it brings much more than the work or the work with organizations. Because not only raises awareness, but also gives a space to. Yeah, Francesca said, can go.
Yeah, sorry, no, because you're about to an open door. If I can say, because when I started, as I say, I started using waste to replace by material. So I would be talking about immortality or something else, and people wouldn't pick up on either one. It was like it was confusing. So at the end of the day, I had to focus only on that. So my message was, all about waste. It has value. Stop wasting away, plundering away planet Earth. But then, interestingly enough, then of course, you try to participate and meet a like-minded network. But there's so much greenwashing out there. But even unconsciously so, because you go to an exhibition, beautiful pieces on eco-friendliness, sustainability, and then you will find something made with gold leaf. Or, I'm thinking, this is beautiful, but can we just, it's like, I feel like my heart breaks, okay? My heart breaks in those occasions. And it's like the art world hasn't picked up on that at all, because it now is just something that's on fashion. Great for us, of course. Finally, we've got a moment, but it just falls like on deaf ears somehow. It's quite discomforting. Of course, you've got to have how keep going, otherwise, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. But sometimes it's really disheartening. And also, even I'm privileged because I'm in London and I can go to see all these beautiful art galleries. Like the poshest in the world, first tier. But they are 2-3 years behind anyway, because of course it takes 2-3 years to arrange one of those shows. So it's actually better to go to a group show, in the local gallery. You get much more, up and coming and cutting edge art. And secondly, again, yes, it's this thing for which, of course, now everything is commercial. As Tessa was saying, it's so commercial. If you don't sell, and you're always in between, a rock and a hard place. Like, okay, but I want to be me because that is what gives value to my art. And secondly, but, if I want to make anything out of it and get it out there so they can actually have some efficacy, and reach someone, it has to also please the market. I'm trying to avoid through art trash for now, but eventually this is an issue that has to be addressed. And that's why at the moment, luckily I found a couple of really good art galleries where, the vibe is real. And they don't care about selling or not, really. They just care about getting a bunch of people together and get it out there. But otherwise, I am telling you, I find some of that, you just, when you walk into a place and instead of feeling excited about it, you're feeling like a heavy heart. It's like it's got to bring you down somewhat.
But then
Sorry,
I would like to
I'm little...
I would actually like to say that, what was so lovely listening to Luca was she automatically calmed us down in the sense that the minute she started speaking the way that she does and what she thinks about and how she feels, and I couldn't help but look at her and think to myself, that's exactly the point, is that we are always rushing from point A to B, and that we're not just doing simple things like listening. And she's now worked this into her life to actually make this work for herself. And, I think it was last week, I went to an exhibition at one of our Joburg Contemporary, whatever. And sorry, I was just looking for my phone now, but of course I don't know where it is. It's just somewhere. So I can't remember what the artist's name is, but she comes from, I think in South America somewhere. But one of the exhibitions that I actually saw on Saturday was she had taken a bean that you find in her country. And if you walk into the installation, the whole thing is just plants, these little beans that are growing up. I cannot tell you how it touched my heart. Like I could almost cry. I actually almost cried. And I thought, that's why she does art. This artist who put that there, she allowed me to connect with something in my heart linked to that. And it kind of brings back to, remember in the beginning I said to you, how on earth did I land up even thinking about plants? I mean, I genuinely have to tell you guys, I used to kill plants. I never used to water them. I used to literally kill them because I never used to, you know what I mean? Yeah. What's the point now where I get so mad if I see somebody being mad for plants? Like I saw this young artist the other day taking acrylic paint and painting all these plants and that, and I couldn't even see past what she was trying to show me because all I could think of was you smothered that poor plant. You know what I mean?
But you know what you would love? In Venice, the Venice Biennale is on at the moment,
But
so
you
it's
don't know
really
how it affects someone. You don't know how what you're doing affects someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it's about.
sorry, but
Francesca, go, yeah.
in Venice again. The Venice Biennale was focused around the foreigners everywhere. Yeah, wonderful subject. I mean, I don't even want to open it. I just want to touch upon one thing that connects to yours. Just around, there are also lots of collateral events, of course. And one of these was by Klaus Littermann, who's Swiss, and it's called Arena for a Tree. And basically, he built this round arena made with pine trees. It smells, not pine, sorry, fir trees. They smell so good. And inside, he had 3 swamp cypresses growing. And the swamp cypresses don't grow there, but they can grow both in soft and salty water, which is impressive, not only, as an idea for a future, but also because it was like bringing a foreigner there where it could actually belong and be a local and translating it from the concept of humans to the concept of plants. So giving plants, the status that they should have, I think. And also it took him 35 years to grow them because he's been moving the arena around. And he was the loveliest guy. He's been there every day since it opened, and he will be there until the end of July. Lovely guy, and it reminds me of that as well. And that was an art installation, my favorite. My favorite. It was so peaceful. It was so just being there. It felt like, and of course, it was on the water, so that also helped. You can imagine, Venice there in the horizon, in the water. This smell just surrounding you, these trees there just giving you so much peace. Yeah, and he built it so that people could actually, as Luca was saying, go there and listen and think and reimagine and mourn and reconnect. So I think that brings us all together, that installation. Actually, Klaus Littermann, have a look at him.
Yeah, I think that goes back to a point that I was thinking when you were all speaking, is what you were saying. Now the eco art and art that speaks about this type of issues is something that is on. So there is a lot of galleries who want that, but then the artists don't start working with acrylics, or they don't do a lot of research about the materials they are using, and also so you go to the exhibitions and you feel a bit put off. But the thing with this type of practices, as you were talking about these artists, is it takes a lot of time. Because when you are collaborating or co-collaborating with plants, what you are co-collaborating with, some, we talked about this in a previous episode, podcast, scuba. We talk about the bacteria and microorganisms. When you collaborate with this type of organisms, you cannot rush the process. Everything has to take its time. So that goes back to my initial idea or thought, because it was not my idea, it's a thought that I'm spitting out from this article, is if we grade this type of art in the same conventional ways of the way you grade art, how many people goes to these shows, how many pieces this artist sells, and all of this, you take the time, so the artist has to focus on survival and not creating these initiatives and these works that can actually bring a lot of comfort, can bring a lot of change to everyone. I said these artists brought up a lot of trees, this installation that you could be there with all the smells and really reconnect with nature. That I think something is really important when we have this type of work. So this is a issue that I also really want to bring here, is that if you classify this type of work in the same parameters as we do all other work, it rushes the process. It makes a lot of pressure in the artist. I can see it as myself as an artist. I started the process quite young, with, I don't want to use machines. I want to use different materials. I want to explore different ways of being more sustainable. And it took me ages, and I'm still doing it, finding the materials, all the research, but really keeps me going. Oh, this artist does this in this way with this material. How is she doing it? When I see artists that, want to collaborate with other artists and create projects that, they all share information and they all striving to work with the material and try to make it work, and to be able to include a sustainable material instead of petroleum to the common to in the industries and all of that. So it really excites me, and it's a point that I wanted to bring here.
Are you aware of I think it's called the Materials Bank?
Yes, I am.
Have you heard of it? And I think it's great. I mean, I'm always on there. I'm always trying to see. And it's exactly what you're saying, Joanna. And also when you're on your own, it's difficult to also, almost, trust yourself in that process of just with time and not be pressurized by other things. So that, you can actually add value to that, because otherwise we just, you know what I mean? We're not walking our talk. And that's why in the beginning, remember I said to you, this Seeing Green project of mine is to force me to really try and actually walk that talk, and obviously being in the context where you still have that foot in that other door, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And my background, by the way, before I was able to have the time to focus on my art practice, was I used to do rural development, low-cost housing, that type of thing, because obviously in context of our country, it's really a necessity. Working with communities and stuff like that. And I always had a marketing sort of understanding and background. And I think you can even see it from the way that I do my stuff and all of that. But, the one thing that always sits at the back of my mind, which is maybe a positive when you're an artist and if you have that understanding, is that subliminal consciousness that kicks into play. So, Francesca, for instance, like you were saying, people not understanding and stuff like that. But, ultimately, there is a subliminal thing happening. And I think at the end of the day, we don't realize how we might be, just from our actions, just from what we're doing, just from what we're trying to do, whatever. It makes somebody make a different choice or a different decision somewhere down the line because, you see it when you're watching television and they put a Nando's chicken on there, suddenly you feel like Nando's. And it's just...
The vegan version, if they have any, but yes.
It's like, for instance, I have to go on a residency in September. And I keep saying to my husband, "You're not going to go and fly on an airplane." Is that really bad to me? But the reality is we live in this world. So, so then Sven, being the pragmatist in our home, he always says, yes, but you must remember it's small steps. And if you, work other things in that you slowly starting to change, because eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to fly with hydrogen-fueled planes or whatever it is that will actually take care of that. And I think that's nice. Also, Joe, I was a bit skeptical of coming onto this thing with you because I've been on platforms before, especially around COVID time, where people become so absolute. Do you know what I mean? And then they've got to prove that they don't drive with this car. Or they don't. Then I start thinking, oh, now they're going to know exactly that I'm still doing my own.
Hopefully they won't ask me.
It's a journey, and you're not going to immediately have all the answers.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say.
Yeah, so true.
You were weirder enough for this anyway.
So
I enjoyed this discussion, to say.
I think I'm just gonna ask one last question to all of you. You can answer one at a time, or please, not all together. So, how do you think embodying care in your art affects the emotional engagement of your audience?
Well, I can answer with very quickly as well, because in my case, I think I can focus on the items. What I love about it is that using waste, everyday items, it's lovely when people actually either ask you, oh, what is that? And then you tell them, oh, it's an Actimel bottle. Really? And of course, because it's something they have in their hands, almost every day when they have little children, for example. And that actually creates a connection, I think, between us and the piece itself. So I'll just simplify it and keep it to the materialistic side. I'm sure Luca and Tessa can also give you a more in-depth psychological answer. Emotional.
Luca, go first, because you've got these two people that talk a lot about it.
Well, I think like Tessa said, there might just be one person that has seen some of my work or experienced some of my work and then makes like one small decision differently. And that's something I just keep telling myself being in my home making art, and there will be something that is changed, and that is just enough for me right now. The small changes that happen also in my life, like if I think about it, about something very deeply and read about it, some things in my personal life or in my art life will change. And I think that's one of the big reasons why I keep making things.
Thank you. Tessa?
It's such a good question, because it's something that I think about a lot, because I think I'm quite an emotional being myself. So in terms of my work and things that I do, I'm always aware that I want that emotional connection. But I find that I don't know if I always get it right, but I find that when I'm being true to myself and I'm not worrying about all the other stuff, and I put out exactly what it is that I think that I want to put out, I usually get quite a strong reaction of either, oh, I don't want that hanging in my home, or I don't, do you know what I mean? That type of thing. Like, like sometimes I use children in my work, but in a way where like a child's holding a gun, or, there's a child lying on a rubbish heap, stuff like that. And people don't want to face that. But then to me, I've achieved what I think I was hoping to achieve with that, because I also don't know what they go and they think about once they've left me, and then the other sort of reaction I get is the more sort of playfulness, where with my installations, I am trying to bring out that playfulness. I'm trying to get them to be stupid and lie on, that was the wrong word, but you know what I mean, be silly and lie on the floor and look up, so if they're not, I encourage it, because at the end of the day, I think that's what I'm doing. I'm talking about serious stuff, but I'm also trying to bring playfulness sort of into it. So I don't know if that sort of answers you, but I can't be for sure. I can't know for sure, but I sort of just link to sort of certain reactions.
Yeah. Okay, I just have.
Yeah, I definitely think.
No, go,
Sorry,
Francesca.
I definitely think playfulness really helps, because that's one thing we added to this workshop, training for trainers, that we also prepared during this residency, and I tried to link the knowledge to fun. To, for example, they would have to make up this marine creature, just by reading 3 items of description of what they are. And only after they made it, with rubbish, of course, from their own bin, they could actually look at the picture and see it. So I'm hoping, it's quite hilarious. I'm hoping the confrontation of the two, the creature they created and the real creature would be, and I hope I think that really helps actually as well. Yeah, cementing the experience, and the feeling and the seed that you just planted, hopefully. So,
yeah, I do agree with that. I just have one last question. Sorry, I said that the other one was the last. But I think it's something it's important to talk about. Is so you all three deal with, and people who deal with this type of art, with very heavy issues. So one of the part also of this initiative is, how do artists take care of themselves? So what you have in place to take care of your being, without having to fragment it, because you are always trying to do that and talk about these issues, so it doesn't you not embody all of that?
Let Lucas start.
Look, the spotlight there.
Um, I think making art, or specifically ecological art, has also indeed opened my eyes in a way. Like, I see things differently, making art and thinking about art, in a bad way, I have to say. Like, I a bit more fatal kind of thinking through making art, but and then again, art making is also the therapy for that, for me. I find ways in art that can change my perspective of things, and then I have to find solutions for that through art, and so it's a very double-sided thing to make art. I sometimes wish I never started. uh, but then again, yeah, it's a way of communication. It's a way of making relationship with people, with natural environments, and I think it's also something that I need to do. So making art is also taking care of myself and taking care of these ideas that are in my head.
Yeah, thank you, Luca.
Tessa?
I second
I don't need
what
to
Lucas
moderate.
said. Yeah. But I think I take care of myself by, firstly, I'm a reader. I really do enjoy reading. So whenever I need to, I switch off social media, unplug. My family and friends don't understand, and it can be for weeks on end, where I just take it away and I clear my mind and my heart and my soul. And then also, we walk a lot. My husband and I walk a lot, and I find that it's actually the only thing that really, really takes care of me. In the sense that if I don't do that walking and go into the, because living in a city, you've got to get into the parks and stuff like that. That is when I can feel that maybe I could, So those are the two ways that I take care of myself in terms of that.
Yeah, no, definitely walking is such a good one for me too, and the garden. But quite frankly, the fact is that, for example, I am what I do, and I think you girls can also say the same. So it's like if it's a battery that auto recharges, and sometimes it feels like a cage because you're so heavy, it's just something you cannot get out of. And sometimes I just wish, you tend to just say, fuck it, just go, take the plane and fly, to the Maldives away. But then you're thinking, no, it's just what I do is something I could not do without, and I could not do any differently. And you take the burden and the lightness of it, and you mix it together, and it's just something you can't help doing, I think.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, that's what my point there is, because I think doing art is not a choice, let's say like this. We can choose not to do it, of course, but then it's something that is never developed within us. So when we're talking about these issues, it can be very heavy for us because we feel it's not my only opinion, my only experience is for when I speak with people, they have the same interaction with this. We feel that we have to put something out there, we're gonna bring change, and can be very heavy for us. So putting sometimes us first and disconnecting of having practices who helps us be together within ourselves, help us also produce better work and connect with people in a better way. So I'm always advocating for that. People think, because I never took a time off, and so I started to find ways where I could relax in my everyday life, so I could be my true self and my full self to these projects. And I think people sometimes run out of gas because they always trying to do something and being this spectrum, and because it's a heavy space to be, and we get a lot of confrontation. So taking care of ourselves is also very, very important.
I agree.
So, ladies,
That's it now.
yeah, I'm going.
I'm going to sleep. I'm going to the garden.
Take care of
Guys,
yourself.
Luca, how do I see where your sound work that you were doing? How would I look that up?
I will put my SoundCloud link.
Yeah, please.
Oh no, but remember, I don't have that chat thing. So can I get it from you, Joanna?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Look, you can send it to me.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, please. Can you just share then?
Or just, I'll send you an
I'm
email.
interested in that too.
And Francesca, I'm linked to you, I think, on Instagram.
Yes,
I remember,
yes, definitely.
for weeks on end, I'll be off.
It's fine. You'll eventually come back. I know that.
Okay, so ladies, thank you so much for being here and having this conversation. I was so thrilled to have it, and I think I enjoy it so much. So I hope you did too, and I hope the viewers enjoyed it. I don't think. Let me see if someone wants to ask any questions. Shannon's here. Great talk. Do you want to ask any questions, Shannon? If you're still there. That's on. Maybe not. Yeah. No. Okay, great. So this is gonna be on the website, so people can enjoy it and see it. Weren't here. So thank you, ladies, for participating.
Thank you so much. It was absolutely lovely. It's a real pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you.